In this episode, we will discuss our favorite movies, the great American Christian topic of telling people how to vote, redefining being called to ministry, and what happened this week at Grace. So thanks for joining us. Hi, Derek.
Hi, Danielle.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine.
Good.
Yeah. All right.
Man.
So, man, what a week, huh?
What a week.
I'm like, feel like I'm.
We were just we both overslept this morning a little bit. Huh?
I'm telling you, the last time this happened to me, I don't even know. I woke up to Dax, my 6-year-old, staring me in the face, like one of those nightmare in the middle of the night kind of situations. And he said, "Mom, is it a home day?" And I'm like, "No, I'm reaching for my phone." "No, of course, you crazy kid." What? I'm like, hours slept past. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a couple weeks, I guess.
It's been busy.
Sometimes, and I was saying, like, I would have had to actively or physically open my phone, turn off my alarm. My alarm was off, so I woke up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I have no recollection. That's how tired I must have been. So hopefully we'll have a nice family night tonight. Let's see.
Yeah, great.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about. We like to do these little intros just to kind of show like we're semi-regular people. I won't say normal, but just what's going on in the world or what's going on with us. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about movies because we both love movies.
We do love movies. Yeah.
And I said, like, originally I was like, let's do a top 5 like favorite movies. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get to 5 and I was at 10 and you said the same thing to me.
Well, you said, hey, let's do a top 10 movie. My first response was, let's do 5 because I sent a message like 30 seconds later. Never mind it. Let's
10.
make it 10.
And then we both just looked at our lists.
Yeah.
We haven't shared them with each other, but we both looked at our list and we both realized we had 11.
We have 11.
So
it's the top 11 movies.
All right, great.
Okay. You going first?
Sure.
We do 5 at a time?
Let's do 5
do you have them ranked?
I don't have them ranked. I couldn't. Do you have them ranked?
Well, no, but I have a semblance of my top couple.
Okay.
So why don't we save the top couple for the second
All right.
list.
Okay, so we're going
do your bottom 6.
All right, I'll try. All right, so my bottom 6-ish. I'm not going to be able to do this. All right.
By the way, people think it should be like
Go ahead.
I
You're
feel
fine.
I feel cultural pressure for it to be like Citizen Kane and
Listen,
The Godfather.
We're the same
1 or 2.
person with entertainment. Me too. Because I was like, I don't want to forget some of these movies. And
Right.
I brought up one of the lists on the internet. It's like, Citizen Kane. I'm like, no.
That everyone says
get
it's
it.
the number one, and I'm like,
It's not.
It's fine.
It was
Right.
it pivoted a lot of things.
Sure, it was groundbreaking.
Come on, people. Citizen Kane. Give me a break.
Okay.
You're going to put
I just want to make sure.
Anyway.
Like, I want to make sure you don't have like a snobby list, and
I do not have a snobby list. I have like my favorite
Okay, good,
movies.
perfect.
For example,
Okay, go.
E.T.
Oh wow!
I know.
Okay. Yeah,
It's
that's
just
a good
one
one.
of- it's just one of those
Is it
ones.
nostalgia or was it the actual movie?
I think it's nostalgia.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
have a
was
couple of those.
That was like a good time in my life.
I have a couple of those on my list.
And it was the first movie I saw in the theater. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah,
My
that's a
uncle
big
took
deal.
me. I had like an E.T. sweatshirt. Like I remember
We can't spend this much time on
No,
these
sorry.
ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
E.T. Oh shoot, man, this is hard.
They're not ranked. Just
they're not ranked,
bottom
okay.
6. I mean,
Well, it is ranked.
not your top 3. Let's
Whatever. All right, not top 3. Oh jeez. Okay, Steel Magnolias.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
I have some weird ones. But
Okay,
listen,
all right.
the acting in that. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to justify all my choices to you. Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
None of these are on my list.
That's all right.
That's all right. Go.
The Sixth Sense.
That was very close.
Yeah.
For me.
Lion. It's a relatively recent one.
Lion.
Adoption story.
Yes.
Australian.
Got it.
India.
Got it. Okay.
Oof.
Yeah.
The Help.
Okay. Wow. None of those are crossovers. That's
Cool.
funny.
Okay.
Because I've always thought we have similar.
But our
tastes in
tops
movies.
might be.
Maybe, but those are all good for me. So it's that there was
Yeah, they're
none
not
of those
great.
that I was like,
Okay.
I wouldn't have chose.
Yeah.
They're all good.
You agree. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So bottom 6, Green Mile.
Yeah, I had that, but I deleted it.
Green Mile, Schindler's List. These are a little bit heavy. Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So I think Back to the Future is a nostalgia one. For
Yeah,
me.
makes sense.
Like E.T. for
Yeah.
you. It was a good time. Life is Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Is a good one. I probably can't say this to keep my job, but Fight Club.
It's in my, it's in
Is
my
it really?
upper. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll 12 Monkeys.
Oh my gosh.
Remember 12
Yeah,
Monkeys?
I do.
So I really like dystopian stories, apocalyptic,
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic
Yeah.
dystopian story. So that would be probably, and I didn't put a lot on here. There's some others in my top, but that tends to be a favorite genre
Yeah.
of mine.
All right.
And I'll do one more nostalgia in my bottom 6, Princess Bride.
Oh, I knew you were going to put that one in there. Yeah.
Princess Bride. It is one of our family favorites, oft quoted.
It's
In fact,
quotable. It's
it
so
is.
quotable.
In
Yeah.
fact, there was somebody talking to me the other day that was just, I probably shouldn't say it, that was just going round and round. And I had a Princess Bride quote come to my head of, "You have a dizzying intellect."
That's awesome.
You have a
Yeah.
dizzying intellect. There's sometimes the quotes just really work.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Tops.
Okay, tops,
Tops
I
five.
guess. Well, Fight Club is in my top.
Yeah.
That movie changed a lot for me about how I felt about movies. That really like pivoted some
Yeah.
stuff for me. Forrest Gump
Yeah.
is my Green Mile
I considered
nod.
it. Yeah.
Like I wanted to get Tom Hanks in there mainly,
Yeah.
but like Forrest Gump, I mean, oh my gosh. Anyway.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, Return of the King,
Oh, that's a good one.
specifically.
That's the best one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
movie. I almost wanted to say no books. Just because it's the
Sure.
books.
Yeah.
It's the books.
It is the books.
Good Will Hunting,
It's in my top 5.
Memento.
I thought about it.
Yeah, anyway.
I
think,
love
I think I
that
said
movie.
5. Did I say 5? I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Memento was another.
Memento's that's a shifter.
That's
It
a
shifts your brain.
Yeah, it does.
That was good.
Yeah.
Okay, so my top 5.
I think the point of this, by the way, when I looked up like ideas for stuff, we're supposed to disagree. So it's
Yeah,
probably
it's not
they're
a
probably
good
like
one for
everyone's
us.
like, wow,
Yeah.
they're the same. Cool. I'll get mad about something.
Right. Okay. Rocky.
Well, I'm gonna get mad about that, and I'm not actually making. I'm not making that up. Well, actually, go with your. Now I'm gonna
Rocky.
guess the rest of your list.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No,
I
you're
better not.
No.
I'll be disappointed. Go ahead.
Rocky.
Why?
Oh, Danielle.
I'm being serious.
The original Rocky movie, part of it was just my dad.
Okay.
And we watched it together.
Okay.
And we were both athlete people.
Yeah, okay.
And the underdog story.
Okay.
And he lost at the end of the movie. It didn't end
Yeah,
right.
it's true. It didn't end right. Yeah.
And it was
Okay.
profound for me.
All right.
Terrible acting.
That's my problem.
The worst
Yeah.
acting ever.
Yeah.
And Sylvester Stallone really never got better.
No. Yeah, worse.
All right, but okay.
Yeah.
Rocky, Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
The Game.
Oh my goodness, I forgot about the game.
The Game.
That's a good one.
Oh my gosh. I love
That messed me
movie.
up.
The Usual Suspects
I need to put that in. Yeah.
and Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
So Shawshank Redemption is my top.
Thank
And it didn't
goodness.
even appear on your list,
Well,
which is strange to me.
I have something to tell you.
Okay, tell me.
I love that movie.
Okay.
I do think it gets a little bit overrated.
Okay.
But
Yeah, no, I get
it's in
that.
my top 20.
I get that.
For sure. I mean, probably my top 15.
I get that.
There is such great acting,
Yeah.
such great, all of the things. It hits all the story,
Oh,
the redemption, all the stuff. We actually just saw it at our local playhouse. They did it.
Right.
And
The stage version.
the stage version. And
I didn't know there was.
I didn't either. I don't know if there should be.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It was fine, but it was like, I don't know if this should be happening on stage right now. For those of you, we don't need to get into it.
No.
But a cool thing about that is, 8 people on stage
Yeah.
at any given time. Like it was
One
a
set.
real one
The
set.
whole time.
I thought one thing that was cool. Shout out to the Erie Playhouse for this. They kept them up on the stage during
During the
intermission
intermission.
because they're in prison.
It
I
was
was like,
awesome.
this is the most creative thing I've seen this place do.
Agreed. And did you? I don't know if you did the thing.
Yeah.
We both knew somebody from our church was in the
Yeah.
in the play,
Yeah.
and so that was cool. But they did a thing. You might have even missed it, but in the lobby you could buy a package of fake cigarettes
I saw that, but we didn't do it.
and a postcard and send inmate mail.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize, we didn't realize when we did it, because
Yeah.
we did, and we gave a little note to the guy that was in it that we
Yeah.
know, was that they were going to be out there. We thought because they said during intermission we'll deliver this
Yeah.
to them. So I was like, oh yeah, he'll get it backstage,
Yeah.
and it'll be kind of this nice thing. He knows we're
Oh,
there,
that's
and blah blah. they delivered it while they were on stage.
That's
And so
cool.
they're
I
like,
didn't know
hey,
that.
mail is here. And the guy came up and all the inmates gathered around during the intermission. So the crowd is
That's
mingling.
awesome.
But they're still going at their thing. And they got mail.
No
and
one
he
did
like,
that at ours.
Really?
Yeah, no one did it.
He like, we watched him read our thing. He like looked out into the crowd and like tried to see us.
That's cool.
It was really cool.
That's
like,
really
that was
cool.
really creative.
Yeah, anytime you can like
Yeah.
get immersive like that,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
It was
Yeah,
awesome.
it was great. And it was cool to see he's an example of a person that,
Mm-hmm.
He uses his gifts at church and then he realized, wait a minute, let me get back out there and
Yeah.
like be in the mix and do this with people. So it's a cool kind of future church or awake the lake kind of thing too.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And by the way, the
yeah.
Shawshank thing, you're right. It's overrated a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I kind of use as my gauge for what is some of my favorites
Yeah.
is if there is a rerun on TV, how long will I stop and watch it again?
Yeah.
And all of those,
Yeah.
Rocky, Usual Suspect, Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, you'll stop.
I'll stop
Yeah.
and take in a little bit because
That's a
it's
good
just like-
filter.
yeah.
That one is true for me too. That's a
Yeah.
good filter. Yeah, it's good. All right. So, well, that was long.
Yeah,
but
that was a little long.
please-
And this is probably going to be a little long too.
yeah, just put on 2. You guys know how to listen to podcasts fast. Put on 2.
2 times.
If you're getting to this point and I'm telling you to put on 2, sorry. Don't put on 2 now. Put on. Oh, dang.
Should've-
All
we
right.
missed
Anyway,
it. Yeah.
we'll put in the show notes. The last week's show notes. Fast forward week 2. All right, so we're gonna do some from the pastor's inbox, and I think this is just helpful, hopefully for pastors or other staff members. Maybe you're getting emails like this, and you just want someone else's opinion, or if you're like a person like me that's like, hey, if someone already did the research and I can kind of use some of this content, feel free. You can get it from the show notes. Use it. Today we're talking about the idea that. And I'm sure this is an amount. This one sentence is representing about 500,000 emails. Yeah. The idea: shouldn't the church be telling people how to vote? And I guess we'll start with like, who are you voting for this election? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Do not answer. Beep. Yeah.
2 times speed, we'll still pick it up.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. What's up? What's up with this?
Well, okay. So let me preamble, and then I do have a few thoughts on it. So the preamble is, first of all, people say to me, and I imagine a bunch of other pastors, there's this assumption. They'll say, well, I know you're not allowed to talk about this.
Oh, okay.
But, and so there's this idea of this separation and the church and state. I just want to be clear. There is nobody telling me what I can and cannot say about,
Other than me.
about these
Just
issues.
kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So this is my opinion. This is my approach. I also want to tell people I do, in fact, have political opinions, very strong ones in some cases that I believe very, very personally and clearly. I also know that if I begin to spew those from the pulpit, we will alienate half of the mission field that we're trying to reach. America's a very divided country on this stuff, and so I just don't believe that I should lead with it because I do think it will alienate and almost even disqualify people in their own minds from saying I can even be a part of that ministry.
Well, we just see that just in culture, like to the negative side of that. Like, I don't want to be part of that
Yeah, exactly.
because they obviously believe what everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I mean, Larry Osborne, I heard him talk recently, and he basically said to a group of pastors, he said, people are generally no longer listening to your sermons for information or inspiration, which is a little depressing. He said they're listening to try to figure out which political side you're on so that they can either write you off or shout amen.
Oh,
And the assumption is that if you don't agree with them, you're either stupid or immoral. And if you're either of those things, you're not worth following.
wow. Yeah.
And so that our ears have been trained to listen and go, I am trying to make a decision which side this person is on. And it's a really sad commentary,
it's awful.
but it's true. And I do get this question a lot because partly I think we've gotten things mixed up. Politics has been injected into every part of our lives. All it seems like we talk about is our differences, and by the way, and again, this is part of the preamble. Okay, I'm getting to a couple points.
It's okay.
This is by design, and that's a frustrating thing to realize, but it is true. Because when you hate, when you're driven to hate, somebody is profiting from that hate, and it's not you.
No.
And so it's a social media company. It may be the politicians themselves or a political party themselves. But if they can get people to the point of hate, somebody's profiting on that, which is a really sick bottom line to think about, but that's one of the bottom lines of this whole conversation. So anyway, I have a few thoughts about kind of responding to this idea of shouldn't the church be telling people how to vote? So here's the first one, and it is that politics has become a religion that demands activism and outrage. And so this is something I want to push against. And one of the reasons I don't want to cave into this request is because I don't want to conflate these two things like I think a lot of people do. So there's this recent survey that showed that Americans are more likely to be unhappy if their child were to marry someone from a different political party than if they married somebody outside their religion.
That's wild.
So can you imagine another time in history where that would have been
No.
true? And a similar survey showed that Christians are more likely to leave their church because of their political beliefs than to leave their political beliefs because of the teachings of their church. And again, this should show us this kind of upending of these and conflating of these two things. We're witnessing something. You know, people talk about the polarization problem all the time in our country. This is worse than polarization because what's happening is what we're seeing is the morphing of politics into a religion.
Yeah.
So for many Americans, politics isn't just more important than their religion. Politics has actually become their religion.
There's some very popular secular podcast people that are talking like that, and they're not Christians.
Right.
They're saying, wow, this feels like a religious, like zealot kind of a, I'm like, yeah.
It's that
'cause
same
it is.
instinct.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so the battle cry has become on both sides really that if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention.
Yep.
And so you'll hear this, educate yourself, da, da, da. And the goal of all of that is to go, you need to be whipped up into a state of outrage. And everybody has to be an activist because, and here's the line, on both sides, we are facing an existential threat. Everybody's heard this term, existential threat. So then we throw around examples like Dietrich Bonhoeffer on the right and what he did, and we need more Bonhoeffers, and on the left we need more MLK, that people that are willing to go all the way to the wall for whatever their side is. The problem with that existential language is that it forces us to outrage and activism, right? And so if you really, existential is a big word. That means our existence is being threatened, our very existence. And if you knew that, or if you actually believe that, here's the danger of it. You can justify anything.
Oh, right.
You can justify,
That's the,
and the
horrifying.
The thing that's given is, if you knew Hitler was going to be Hitler 20 years before, what would you do to prevent that person from taking power? Well, anything. Right. You would throw the election or whatever the process was.
You would kill all the firstborn males of that generation.
You would kill him.
You would kill him. Yep.
So you can and it would be seen as a good thing.
Correct.
And so this is the danger of this idea of politics becoming kind of like people's religion. And the problem isn't just anger. Anger is an emotion that says I care. It's anger paired with disgust, and that's what we're seeing, because anger plus disgust then is contempt. And contempt is where things get really, really dangerous and really weird, because that's when you become convinced of the worthlessness of another person, is when you hold them in contempt. And we see this all the time. One of the things that drives me nuts, it's one of my pet peeves, is all the adjectives. And so anytime anyone's introduced by somebody on the other side, they say, oh, there's election denier, blah, 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 or there's homophobe, blah, blah, or, known homophobe, blah, 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 or the pro-Palestinian, da, da, da.
Yep.
And so, we throw these adjectives in front of these, somebody's name to supply a label. So it's almost sending a message like you don't have to be curious anymore about that person.
Yeah, don't worry about what they're going to say because it's about this.
It's about or they are this kind of person, and so you don't have to listen to them. And it's wild to me.
Well, and even just imagine yourself. What if every room you walked into, it was like, oh, here's the, liar Danielle.
Somebody used the most unsavory adjectives to describe you.
Or even say any.
Right.
It's like, I'm more than that one word. And these people have become these products, so we don't even see them as humans anymore.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So this has become the culture climate in which the church exists. And I think, again, thinking about this question, we have to have that climate in our mind as we respond to these things, because really what happens is a lot of times people are just trying to draw pastors or draw leaders into that world of going, I need you, not, often the question isn't, I need you to tell me how to vote. It's, I want to know how you
Exactly.
vote so that I can size you up, because my politics is my religion.
Yeah.
And unless you fall down on my side, you're not worth listening to. So I love how Joshua Ryan Butler puts it. There's a great book called Party Crasher. But he says that Jesus invites you to bring your lean, but submit your bow.
Oh, wow.
So that we
That's
have a
good.
lean toward different political perspectives. Of course we do. But our bow, our allegiance belongs to Jesus. And the danger is, and what I'm saying here is when the lean becomes a bow.
That's good.
And when that different center of your life actually becomes your functional religion. So that's the first thing to just keep in mind, is that politics have become a religion that demands activism and outrage. And I just think we need to push against that as hard as we can.
That's good.
The second thing I would like to say is that, and this a little bit more obvious and less esoteric, is that we're part of a different kingdom. So the Bible's very clear about this, Philippians 3:20. Our citizenship is in heaven, and from it we await a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. And so yes, we are citizens here of this country. That's great. Our primary citizenship as Jesus followers is not here at all. And so our Savior is not our favorite political candidate. Our Savior is Jesus himself, who will one day return and fix this broken mess that we've created. And our job until then is to represent him well. Tony Evans said a while ago, he said, Jesus didn't come to take sides, he came to take over.
That's good.
And so he's the true king. And yeah, the church is political. I push back against the idea that the church shouldn't be political. The church is very political. But it's in that it's a threat to the political order
Should be.
that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
It should be. Yeah, right.
Right.
And so it has been that way from the beginning. And if you think about the different kinds of governments that the church has existed under through history, so you go all the way back to the first century, and, to be a Christian in the first century was seen as politically treasonous because the code language was Jesus is Lord.
Right.
Well, and everyone walking the streets knew who Lord was, and that was Caesar.
Right. Right.
And so if you're saying Jesus is Lord, like that's a whole pushback. But again, that's not choosing a party. That's saying that Jesus is outside this whole system.
Yeah.
And I think what we get sucked into is you have to be right or left, you have to be red or blue. And instead of going, no, Jesus is outside this whole system and we are loyal to him. And yes, it informs how we interact within this system. But this system must never become our ultimate kingdom.
Yeah.
We are strangers here. We are aliens here. We are representatives of a different kingdom.
I think that's helpful because a lot of times our church in particular can get accused of just like not thinking it's important at all.
Right.
Like it's just hands off.
Yeah.
And that's just that whole black and white thinking that is easier to adopt. But I think that's helpful.
Yeah, that's not true.
Yeah.
And, I do think that I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Here's the third thing that I would say in just response to this question is that, and this is the kind of the practical side, the church must be a place where people of great diversity can find community. So, I'll get one of the common things that happens to me, and I'm sure other pastors can relate, people sending me video sermons from other churches, and it'll be accompanied by some line like, "This is what a real sermon looks like on politics." Or whatever. And I'll watch a snippet of it and say, "Well, that's a political rally. That's not that's a political rally. What that person just did," and it seems like then in people's mind the entry requirement to becoming a Christian or coming to a church would be to be a member of that political party. And so now we're creating red churches and blue churches, and what a stinking shame. And you just think about, here's the classic example of this. You think about how Jesus chose his disciples. In a deeply divided ancient world, so deeply divided. So in modern terms, you've got the Pharisees who are the far right right-wing fundamentalists. You have the Essenes, who are basically like the Amish. They're separatists. You have the Sadducees, which are probably like progressive mainline Christians kind of thing, a little liberal leaning in most social issues. You have the Zealots, which are the activists. They are confrontational to the government at all stages. And then you have the Sicarii, which are violent. This is like the Antifa or, abortion clinic bombers or whatever, that you can justify any kind of violence. Well, first of all, Jesus didn't fit any of those groups. Secondly, when he gathered the 12 disciples together, he gathered people who were sympathizers of basically all of those groups. And so you can imagine the campfire conversations,
oh my gosh,
around this. And I almost imagine him, one of the names of one of the disciples is called Simon the Zealot. So it'd be
it's like, well,
Joe the Nationalist and, whatever.
Sherry the Republican.
And so, imagine Simon the Zealot wanting to revolt against Rome at any cost, and Matthew the tax collector collecting taxes for selling out his Jewish heritage to work for the man. And imagine Jesus going, Simon the Zealot, Matthew the tax collector, you guys are going to be rooming together for the next couple of years. And we're going to work this out. And those guys, and then Jesus goes, you know what? Here's how people are going to know you're my disciples. You love one another. Well, no kidding. If that's the context, and that should be a challenge to us.
That's good.
That there should be communities where people of great diversities can find a higher loyalty. And that's the church. And so if we start taking sides and going, this is going to be this kind of church and this is going to be that kind of church, we are actually erasing this diversity that Jesus had in mind for his church.
That's good. So
when it comes to specific voting and how should people vote, and what are you voting?
Oh, he said it. You missed it.
So, do we cut away real quick?
Yeah, just forget all the preamble. I'm just going to tell you to vote.
I would just say, yes, vote, I think, or don't. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I advocate for voting because I do think that that's part of being a good citizen in our system. I think America has influence in the world. And I think to have a say in that is a privilege.
Sure.
So I do think we should vote. I would encourage people, and here's how I think about voting. I would encourage people to really wrestle with defining a handful of their most concerning issues for the common good of our country. And just go, what are the most, like if I think big picture, what are the most few important issues that and that could change from election to election, to be honest with you. To go, here's what I think are the most important things that our country's facing right now. And some of those issues are, and again, they go across the spectrum, so it's not easy to nail down, but things like protecting freedoms and liberty of conscience, seeking justice and compassion for the poor and the vulnerable, sanctity of human life, pursuing racial justice and reconciliation, strengthening marriages and families and children, preserving human rights, promoting peace and restraining violence, caring for God's creation. Like, these are all things that are important in the scriptures for us to be thinking about. And I think for us to be able to cluster some of those things together and go, and I would even say use of national resources, financial stability, like that doesn't sound super spiritual, but man, the stability of our nation is really important. Otherwise we descend into crazy lawlessness. And so anyway, there are different ones of these that are important to different people, but I think kind of coming up with a rationale for these are the most important things right now, and I think this person or party represents those things best. And I will just say about the person, we are choosing a leader and not a pastor. I think it's an important thing to remember, not that anyone would, be mistaken for any of our candidates that they're like super spiritual options. But I say that not for the pastor side of it, I say it for the leader side of it, because we've all worked for bad leaders and we've all hopefully worked for some good leaders. And I think it's important for us to think through what are the character qualities of good leadership. And I would want to apply as many of those as possible to the person that's going to be actually leading our country. And so I think that's another lens. But I also think, I encourage people to vote. There are way more impactful ways to be engaged as a civic person than just voting.
Yes.
And I would encourage people, I think one of the greatest ways is to get involved locally. And that's where you're actually a good neighbor. And that's where you can actually serve the poor and do justice. And, that's where you can actually enact change. And so to put all of our eggs in the basket of you have to vote, you have to vote, you have to vote, this is the most important thing you can do. I don't think it's the most important thing you can do to help our country.
Yeah.
I think getting involved locally is way more powerful.
That's great.
So anyway, that was long.
It was long.
It's going to be a long one today.
Yeah, that's all right.
Oh, well.
It'll be good. So you can, again, just to remind you, if you want to submit an email topic, you can do that at dereksanford.com. We can say our name. We can keep it anonymous, whatever you prefer. If you think it'd be helpful for you or other people, happy to look it over and share it with everybody. All right. So we're entering our Reinventing Church topic part of the show. And the meat of this podcast is really pulling back the curtain and showing you what it looks like for us to move from an assimilation-driven megachurch model to a model that includes and leverages discipleship multiplication. And we're hoping that this is helpful for you guys and us. And so today we're going to talk about what it means to redefine what it means to be called to ministry. And Andrea Bierer is here with us. I consider her our local marketing maven. If you ever want to do like a study an incredible brand ambassador, I would say Andrea is she's your girl. Incredible. So she was a person just from Grace who we included in the Awake the Lake vision. So you were able to sit around the table with us with Dane and Shane. Dane and Shave.
At least he didn't say Dane and Shave. Yeah.
Dave and Shane from
Right.
Clarity House. So you have a lot of that like backstory too, and we just wanted to talk to you today. So why don't you start by talking about why we're talking about this idea of redefining being called?
Yeah. So thanks for being here, Andrea.
Yeah,
but the let me just set this up for a second. One of the big pillars that we're talking about in this shift for us is we call it changing the finish line. So we used to have the finish line of discipleship, and really leadership to an extent was inside the walls of the church. At least that's how it was defined. That wasn't, we always hoped that it would go outside the church, but we never really had language or imagination around it. Anyway, so one of the outcomes of this idea of moving the finish line outside the walls of the church is going, okay, well, that also has to instruct how we think about how people live out their faith. So up until now, it was like, well, the best leaders in our church are the people who are, leading the small group ministry or who are leading some ministry, again, inside the walls of the church. And one of the things, actually, Andrea, that you said early on in this process for us was, talking about your husband, Doug, who you guys run a whole construction company, and basically said he feels guilty when he comes to church because he's not a small group leader. And so whenever we make a call
And I think
for
the
small
whole
group
room, by
leader-
the way, went just froze.
Exactly. Like,
Oh, no.
what have we done? But it was that like arresting moment of
it
like,
was.
okay, here's a person who's not just leading a small group, he's leading a small group ministry as a business where he's trying to make disciples and pastor people's families and all this kind of stuff. And we haven't counted it, or we haven't had the imagination to say, yes, that is also discipleship. Maybe even more so discipleship than the stuff that we had been counting to date. So anyway, one of the fun things about your story, and you can talk a little bit more about this, but I just want to give us a framework for it, is that, often people think, when they think about calling, this idea of being called to a ministry or called into ministry, and we have examples of this on our staff where it's like people who were in kind of a secular, so-called secular workspace, who left that to come into church ministry. Right. Your calling to ministry was out of the church space and into a secular business. Yeah. And so I love the upside down nature of that, because I think for all of us, it helped to upend the idea of what it really means to be called into ministry. And so anyway, that's why we're talking about this. That's why Andrea's here, because they're running a business that I believe, I think we all believe, it has real amazing potential for partnership alongside the church, doing discipleship outside the walls of the church, understanding calling in the real world kind of thing. And so there's a lot of angles that I think you can speak to, which will be helpful.
Yeah. So yeah, you and Doug, like Derek said, you lead a large construction company. Can you just talk a little bit about that, and then also share maybe some stories of how you've seen God work in your company?
Okay. So, we co-own a company called DBC Remodeling and Construction. It's 17 years old. We have about 51 employees, and the backwards part of our story is that my husband actually has a degree in Bible and pastoral studies. He was a pastor for almost 5 years, and we left that to start a business. And we jokingly say he did the Jesus thing backwards because he went from pastor to carpenter.
That's funny.
But we just honestly, we were given, I think, growing up, this bad advice that was like, if you really love Jesus, then you have to go into vocational ministry. And my husband really loves Jesus, but he really loves construction, and he really loves working with his hands, and he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And there was a part of him that was so unbelievably missing when he was trying to serve in the church. And it was a hard conclusion to come to. And some people don't understand that. Like, it's funny, we're talking about calling because I actually remember the phrase, people like, is he forsaking his calling? And, I thought he was called to be a pastor. And I mean, we had to wrestle through all of that. Did this mean we were somehow walking away from our faith? But we didn't feel that way. We felt like he was changing vocation, not position in his calling to change the world or faith or any of that. So, but it was a hard, and I think it's been interesting too, as we've been talking about all this calling stuff, people you keep talking about our story. So people are now asking me about our story. And I want to say, when we started out, we didn't know what we were doing either. It's not like we were like, and someday we're going to own a construction company that is doing this. We just were doing the next right step with a lot of prayer and a lot of seeking wisdom from people that were smarter and wiser and more mature than us, and going, this is not the right path for us. It seems like a right path, but it's not. And God's calling us to go this way. And it was so obvious. It wasn't some, like you said, it's not so mysterious to unravel. It was like, this is not where what we're supposed to be doing.
And the truth, it's easy. It's just easier to keep people in boxes. Calling as a pastor, like, it's just, I can see why people are confused or even probably rude about it sometimes.
And none of that was wasted, right? Like, so now Doug is this leader of a company that is, I mean, he learned to preach. He gives really good speeches at our company. He learned to sit by people's bedsides in really difficult things. And we've had people in our company walk through really difficult things. And he is unafraid to offer to pray, to come alongside someone walking through something hard. But he's also had to learn how to balance that with making a profit and running a successful company that is in the best interest of everybody who works there. And I don't know, it's been a really exciting journey. And he really truly said one of the reasons that he started the company is, he said, I wish my dad had worked at a place like this. He's from a family that works in the trades. And he said, my dad was such an incredible skilled craftsman who was so good and such a heart for Jesus and loved his family, but didn't always work for great bosses. And Doug said, what if he could have worked for a place that honored him? And so that's what we're trying to create.
Yeah. It's part of our dream is to help more and more people, again, outside the walls of the church, to view their life as a pastor of a parish, and whether that parish is a company or whether that parish is, a group of cubicles, or whether that parish is a nonprofit or something that they started or whatever. But part of the problem, I think, historically in the church, including our church, is that we haven't had, I said earlier, language for that, and we haven't had imagination around that, just in terms of what could that look like, and what could, partnerships between the church and people who are doing that kind of work look like. And we're nose to the grindstone right now trying to figure that all out. But can you just talk about Danielle said that you had walked with us kind of through that journey with Clarity House and some of the changes that we were making. Can you just talk about some of the moments along the way, or like how, Doug was not in those meetings, and so
he might as well have been.
Yeah, I mean, he became like a mascot.
I know, poor Doug.
Poor guy.
we actually came up with a phrase like, "What about the Dougs?" Like he became
Which
you
I
know,
didn't
a
tell him
symbol.
for a long time.
Smart, smart.
Very smart. But with that, all that aside, can you just talk about like your journey as you saw maybe the church coming to grips with some of the stuff that you guys were wrestling with and starting to come up with language around that. Just talk about what that process was like for you, and maybe even as you debriefed with Doug and we're going, hey, I think the church is thinking about this, and what does that mean for us? And like just talk about some of that journey along the way.
Well, for starters, it was like truly the privilege and honor of my life to get to be a part of this. Like I have said that to Doug over and over again, like I can't believe I got to do this. So thank you for asking me. It also was one of the, for me, this has been really exciting because it's one of the first times I've been asked to serve in church in a place that's actually in my skill set. I lack a lot of typical skills that that people get recruited to do in church. I'm really bad at them, and but the ones that I am good at are odd and unique. I'm good at facilitation. I'm good at certain things, and I get to do that. So thank you. And I kept coming home going, this is so exciting. This is like what I've been paid to do for 20 years for other places.
Yeah.
And for the first time, like I'm going to get to do that for my church.
Yeah.
And then for us, as we kept going through and seeing the ways, I just would come home so excited. And I'm like, this is like exactly what God's been calling our company to do separately. And to see the overlap, to see it doesn't feel accidental. It doesn't feel like, oh, well, that's a coincidence. It feels like God has put all these things in place. While we were walking through Clarity House, I mean, our company used to only cover 3 counties. We are, Awake the Lake is a multi-county vision, and literally we were handed almost the exact same counties for dealerships that Grace was saying this is what we're going to focus on, and all of a sudden we're going, oh my. And the same thing with learning our mission, vision, values, and how that coincides and what that means for people inside our company, and giving us language around, we feel really confident in our calling, or where we're at in this moment, that God wants us to do this secular company in a godly way. But some of our people are still struggling through that. They love being carpenters, but they really love Jesus, and they're not sure if they should stay being carpenters or if they have a different path in life. And they have to sort that out, but giving us language to talk about the honor of serving in the place where you're called, and that this might be it, has been a really exciting thing too.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that you talked about was, and again, not to give away too many insider secrets here or anything like that, but I know even just simple things like as we walked through the process of identifying our values, and then, but it wasn't just a value statement. It was one of the things that we walked through was saying, here's our value, and then this value is going to be demonstrated by these kinds of behaviors, because sometimes values can just be things that hang on the wall, and to be able to get to kind of the specificity of going, and here are some ways that that'll be lived out. And I know, you resonated with some of that too, even as you guys were thinking about your company. So can you talk about that?
So we've done the work. I mean, I think a lot of good business owners do take the time, and hopefully they don't just hang on the wall their values and that kind of thing. We spent a lot of time actually in prayer, deciding what our values and core values and mission vision should be for our company. Ours is actually bringing honor and joy to home improvement, honor to our customers, honor to our employees, and honor to God. And we tell our company that's our whole purpose.
Yeah.
But what this allowed us to do, Doug and I actually are in the process of looking at the framework that we went through for with Clarity House for our mission vision, and how we broke it down beyond just the statements. Doug thought through all of that. He really did, but we haven't documented that or shared it. And we started talking about what it looks like to bring people into discipleship groups, more or less, or huddles or inner circles, where we're going, okay, what our company stands for, why we treat our customers the way we do, but let us tell you why we picked that. And let's really outline some structural scripture of why we picked those things. Would that be something we put on our website? To be honest, no. But is that something that we have people in our company that would give value and meaning to their daily work? Oh yes, yes it would. And so we're looking at all of that and trying to be more intentional about what we do and how we do it to align with what we think God is calling us to do alongside the Awake the Lake vision for the church.
I think what sticks out to me is hearing you talk about, I mean, you have a business to run
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing that to the best of your ability, but you've adopted this idea that you can also develop people just in general. And these obviously we believe these biblical principles are what are going to do that the best, but it's cool that just in general that there's a company that's leading a successful business and wanting to develop people. I think it's really cool.
Well,
it's admirable.
We love to say that we don't require that people share our faith, but this is what Doug says all the time. Because not everybody that works at DBC shares our faith. That's not a requirement. But what he will say is you have to be able to respect what we believe or you'll be really uncomfortable here.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you also, what I'm asking is that if you did believe what we believe, how would you bring honor to a God like that?
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people are like, well, I can comprehend that. But the best part of this, and I think I said this once before and I was talking to you, but I get to see Doug's heart. Like, I'm at home. I see what he's really upset about, what he's really passionate about. I get to see the inside. And we do try to run a successful business. People's families and livelihoods depend on us making a profit and doing it well and serving our customers and all of that. But Doug privately really measures success on how many of our people felt secure enough for the first time to get married or buy a house or have a baby.
Awesome.
Like, how are their lives changing? And I think my favorite story from all 17 years, we had a young guy, he still works for us, he's amazing. But he actually asked to see Doug, which when they ask to see you, that's not normally from the field. When they want to see the owner, that normally means they're quitting. And Doug was like, no, we really like him, And he came and he's like, can I talk to you? And he's like, okay. And he comes in and he's like, I just wanted to take a minute to look you in the eye and say, this job has changed my life.
Oh, man.
And he said, I am a better man. I am a better father. I am a better husband because of the environment and the challenge that you've put in front of me. And I'm grateful, and I want my friends to have this. He became like our number one recruiter. He's recruited more people to work at our company than anybody else. And it just,
Of course.
yeah.
How could he not?
And,
it's amazing.
Yeah. So, and we want that for our people, Doug. We believe God's truth is truth. So all truth is God's truth. And people don't have to know where it comes from for it to make a difference applying it in their lives. And so we do hold to, you preached on the parable of the talents this week or last week. And that was actually our company meeting story this year.
Oh.
But he told it as a story that just existed, not as the Bible story that it was, but talking about our company being trusted with a lot of incredible things. And we have a job to do well with that, to expand upon it, not just squander it. And people resonate with truth. It's pretty cool.
I want to say two more things. One is, as we went through this process, and I actually met with Doug a couple times, and we talked about it in some of our group meetings, as we've been exploring, like, what does it actually look like for a church to partner with a business or a nonprofit in meaningful ways? Like, what does that actually mean? Because it's a nice thing to say.
Right.
But when it comes down to brass tacks, it's like, what does that actually mean? What could a church actually deliver to a Doug or another leader, Andrea? And we've really kind of nailed it down to there are two things. One is what we just talked about, which is people development tools. So churches tend to have access to people development tools, trainings, resources, stories that could make a difference in actual business practice, whether that's in a devotional or a speech, or whether that's when the person comes into your office and says, my wife is sick and I don't know what to do, or whatever. To be able for the church to come alongside to people in those spaces and go, we have tools that can help you develop and care for people. That's a big one. The other one that we've come down to is community, is cohorts is best practice groups that could get together people of like mind who want to do the same things, other business owners, maybe other nonprofit leaders that could all be in a space on a regular basis talking about how are we actually living this out and holding each other accountable and getting some coaching and opening the books almost to each other and going, here's what we've done. Have you tried this? And that's something that just doesn't happen. And if the church can be a facilitating force in both of those arenas, I think we could actually have meaningful partnerships.
Yeah. Oh, and that would be a game changer,
Yeah.
I think.
So the question I want to ask you, and I don't know if you have anything else,
No, I'm good.
but the question I would like to ask you is, so if we have pastors from a variety of different churches listening to this podcast, one of the quotes that I heard from somebody who actually runs an airline, I was at another event, and she said this phrase that I've never forgotten. She says, "My church doesn't know what to do with me." She's a high capacity leader running an entire company. And when she comes in, they're like, yeah, shake hands at the door or whatever. It's like so far under her capacity. And that was her phrase, my church doesn't know what to do with me. And so I know we're kind of on a journey together. We always haven't done a great job. But like if you were to talk to other pastors and just go, as a business leader, as a person who's kind of leading outside the walls of the church, here, pastors, here's my advice of what you could do with people like me. What would you tell them? Maybe it's some takeaways from what we've just been through together. Maybe it's something that you're thinking independently of that. But
I think that part of it starts with, so I'll mirror what you did for me. You guys spent a little bit of time getting to know me and what I might actually be able to offer versus what my capacity was like what's real. So some of your leaders who are high capacity in terms of ability are not high capacity in this moment in terms of time.
Right, that's a good
because
point.
they're trying to build something.
Yeah.
But that person may have a wealth of knowledge that if you key moments said, would you sit and give an opinion on this? Or would you sit and meet with this? They could literally probably be paid to be consultants for large companies, and they would do that for their church if it was in the skill set and respectful of their time and not asking for a unending time commitment that they can't give. Other leaders may have grown their business or their leadership to a point where they have more flexibility to give more time, and they could, do more with staff development, with training. I think just tapping into their knowledge base and seeing not just what their hands can do, like can you hold this thing or shake these hands or lead this class, but what could you pick from their minds in an hour that nobody else could give you?
it's great advice.
That's really
Great
good.
advice.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for joining us. I feel like your summary and that story are just, for me, I'm almost like in tears just thinking of how important these kind of relationships can be. Like if there are, I'm not even saying 50 Dougs, but 50 people who would aspire to be like Doug, even just in Erie. I mean, what a change that would make in our community outside of the quote unquote walls of the church. And so hopefully you're inspired by that. And yeah, thanks for joining us.
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
make you let me say one more thing.
Okay.
So I know you guys are so gracious and so humble, but I want to say again, I'm so grateful to Grace, to you guys, to leadership for taking this journey on because it is exciting to be a part of. And I want to say it on the record, being in this from the inside, Doug did not want me to say yes. You know this. Doug really begged me not to do this. He was like, every time you peel back the curtain at a church, it's normally not so good on the inside. And I really need this church. So can you not do that? And I just want to say it has, for anybody who's listening, for anybody who's wondering if this is the real deal, like we were the skeptics who were new here, and it's the real deal. And what you are trying to lead in the front is even stronger on the back end. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the willingness to plow new ground and take us along for it, because I really do believe it's going to change the community around us. And I'm grateful. Thank you.
Okay, so that was a good conversation with Andrea. She is
She's amazing.
I know. There's not even an adjective. It's like she's incredible. So we always want to try to talk about, if we can, something that happened this week or Sunday, just to be vulnerable. And we're peeling back the layers of this, but also just day to day, we have things that we're learning that may or may not have to do with Awake the Lake, but it definitely has to do with reinventing church, just because we're constantly tweaking and learning. So we're gonna talk about Vision Sunday.
Yeah, let's talk about Vision
All
Sunday.
right.
We just did it this past weekend, so it was the fourth week of a whole series on this Awake the Lake vision, and it was the first time our church really heard kind of the 10-year trajectory of this vision, where we're talking about, it's actually 11 years to 3035. That we're really dreaming about a Lake Erie region impact. So there are 9 counties between Cleveland and Buffalo, and we really want to see gospel presence and gospel advancement in all of those, this kind of whole Lake Erie region. So anyway, that was the first time our congregation kind of heard about that. And in the past, when we do a Vision Sunday, it's usually connected to fundraising.
Yeah,
so
totally.
we have a hand in the middle moment and say, for the next 3 years, we're going to, commit this much money and do these things. And here's how you can get involved. This is a little different this time because, first of all, there was no fundraising around it. Second of all, it was really tied to not just initiatives. It was tied to this whole, I think, seismic shift.
Yeah, it's reorientation.
We're making as a church. So I still feel like we're slowly breaking the social contract with people.
Oh yeah, in months people will be like, "Oh,
wait, what are we doing? Oh,
yeah.
Holy cow!" Yeah. So it is part of we talked about turning the aircraft carrier, not turning the speedboat.
Right.
This feels just like another notch in the aircraft carrier shifting, but we didn't have a ton of specifics to lay out. In fact, I think that was one of the mistakes or frustrations from my end, of just not having a super clear next step that people could do if they wanted to partner with us.
Yeah, we had we have more on the assimilation side, shocker, because that's what we're good at. Next step versus like more on the calling multiplication side of things. And I think one of the benefits of doing the series, even though we said like it's going to be this seismic kind of shift over time, we also tend to like reuse our content. So I feel good knowing, like from a communications perspective, we have a place now where we can have a spot on our website where people could like catch up. What are they, when someone says Awake the Lake, what are they talking about? We're going to be able to build kind of like a knowledge base around that, which I think is a random win. But I guess I'm saying that because I think that sermon in particular, and the ones before it, but I think that can like stand alone as like a, here's kind of where we're going.
Yeah, that's good.
Thing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, some of the good, I think, that came out of this vision series and that vision. So we like maxed out all of our launch classes. So we created this launch class, which is kind of a Dream Disciple primer, and promoted it through the series and maxed out everything. We had to add stuff. We have hundreds of people signed up for that, which was really cool.
Yeah.
I think the couple of negatives.
Yep.
So let me be specific about what I said before about not having next steps. Like I started getting emails in the morning from organizations, individuals being like, "Yes, we're in. Yes, tell us what partnership means.
Yeah. Give us the form or like whatever.
Sign me up." And I'm like, we don't have any of it figured out. And so, part of it is, you cast the vision, and we didn't have a really good, clear next step. I really wish I wish we'd had email this address and get on our mailing list for future, anything like that. And because I just hate to leave people hanging. So that was one miss.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the misses was kind of the big moment in the services was we had, again, this is good, bad, ugly, right?
Yep.
So we had a video that we'd done where I basically read the vision statement.
Yeah.
And it's got dramatic music underneath it. And we're asking people to close your eyes, imagine yourself in this vision or whatever. And so in one of our services, actually, the technology didn't work, and we had no audio.
Yeah.
And so we had a blank screen where people were supposed to be meditating to this very inspiring video
Just
that
sit and think
video
about
that
it.
didn't play.
Just think about it,
Sit
people.
in silence.
And then what? You were scrambling for your notes. I was
Then-
at the other venue, so I
Yeah,
didn't see
then I'm like going back through my iPad, going, wait, do I have a copy of the thing that
go
I
to the
read
wall and
somewhere?
read it.
Yeah. So
Oh, my word.
I find like 5 minutes later, I found it in my notes, went up and read it live awkwardly, and so it wasn't the best, it
No.
wasn't the best moment, but people got it.
Yeah, they'll get it. They'll
Yeah.
get it.
The children's ministry workers are angry because we're 5 minutes
Oh.
later than the already late we were.
It's real,
so-
though.
Yeah, it's real.
And we also have we have a very talented designer on our team, and we were thinking through like, what does this Await the Late kind of logo look like? We're gonna, we're gonna do cool stuff with it, and so we came up with this kind of beach glass looking 3035, and it looks like waves and beach. It's
Yeah,
really beautiful. It's really great.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
But sometimes you forget that nobody knows what you're talking about. So we're like, oh, this is beautiful, 3035. Everyone's staff, oh, it's
Right,
beautiful. Get
30,
it
35,
instantly. Boom,
right.
boom, 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 3035.
Which for the record stands for 30,000 people
Yep.
that we want to find their calling on this Lakeshore region by 3035.
That's the goal in a very one sentence.
30,000 by 3035.
Yeah. Awesome, right?
Right.
Well, we
knew
should
it.
tell people what it means because we handed out stickers. We're like, oh, people can put it on their
Yeah.
just a fun little thing.
Uh-huh.
Put it on your water bottle or whatever. No one's gonna put anything on their water bottle because they don't know what it means. So we gotta backtrack. I think it's what we do. It was like, oh, the vision thing will carry it. The vision,
Yeah.
the statement
They'll
will
connect the
carry it.
dots
They'll
and-
get it.
yeah.
No, they will not. This is not like a disparaging
No.
thing on people. It's just I'm the same way.
Yeah.
You
Like,
just
what
need
the
to tell
heck?
me.
Yeah. Tell me what it means.
You know how it is. Like if you're a leader in any organization, any church, you just get immersed in it
Right.
and you forget.
Yeah. Nobody has any
Nobody has
idea what
any
30
clue.
and 35
Because even
means.
that in that sentence, when you just say that sentence, I don't know most people would get to like, oh, that's the 3035 because it doesn't look like it doesn't say 30 people.
Right.
It's
By
just
3035.
what? So anyway,
We'll get it right.
We're gonna get it right this month and forever.
How do you think we'll get it right? What is the plan to circle back?
Yeah. So I think we're gonna.
I mean,
I
I
already-
don't think we have a plan yet. But
A little bit.
What are you thinking about?
I know for sure we're going to put it into verbals throughout the Mark series, which is the next 3 months. It won't be every week. We won't like hammer it or whatever, but we'll definitely pepper it through. Someone had an idea in one of our review meetings we just came out of, which I think is going to be great. Just create a social reel of people like slapping the sticker on
Using the
things
sticker.
and like a voiceover of like the sentence of like what it means. And then I think
Or somebody asking, what does that mean?
what the? Yeah. And then I think obviously we haven't talked about this yet, but even since that meeting, I've been thinking like we probably need to like put it through a leadership, like take this to your teams kind of thing, so it kind of starts to drip out.
Yeah, that's good.
And we'll do, we're gonna have to commit every single time we do a merch drop or something. Say what it is,
Right.
and yeah,
A little explanation.
little explanation, and I think people get amped about it. We're all amped about it because it's like
Right.
really cool. So, yeah. So we'll learn.
Yep, we're learning.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's good. Yeah.
The rise and fall of Vision Sunday.
Careful. That might be
I mean, I'm trying to get podcast listeners. Apparently, that one was very successful.
the rise and fall of Who is Grace. Hashtag whatever. Okay, guys, thank you. Thank you for joining us. If you like this episode, please subscribe. Leave us a rating. I know, like, you guys know this probably, but subscriptions help us with the algorithm, and we just want to get this to as many people as possible to help. We have again, let's just make this longer. Sorry.
Okay.
We had a really cool meeting today where we talked about like some guests that we want to
Oh,
have
man.
coming up. I'm
excited.
so excited.
Yeah.
You guys are going to subscribe now so you don't miss those things.
Yep.
Again, you can go to dereksanford.com/reinventing church or just dereksanford.com, and that's where you'll see the show notes. You can submit your questions in the inbox. And you can subscribe to Derek's weekly newsletter to get all the latest free tools and posts and your like really special section of your like top
My three favorite
your
things.
3 favorite things.
Yeah, it changes each
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
I've got 3 new favorite things, and we just did the favorite movies today.
Yeah.
That's not one.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more substantial than that.
Yeah.
So it's like books or podcasts
cool.
or lists or it's been fun to hear people's feedback.
Yeah, cool. All right. So get over there, dereksanford.com. Okay, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.